Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. I want to talk about journeying with Dungeons & Dragons. I want to talk about experiencing Dungeons & Dragons. And I want to be open and honest. I want to be transparent and honest with you about 3 distinct dangers you face because you engage with my channel, right? And I want to warn you. I don't ever want you to be in a danger that you're not aware of. Now, there's no physical danger here, but you have specifically an intellectual danger, an emotional danger, and a spiritual danger that that anyone who watches the Dungeon Dudes are never gonna be in danger in these specific intellectual, emotional, and spiritual dangers. So I just want to talk to you about it. Apologies, this is not a freestanding video. Okay, I'm going to talk about intellectual currency, emotional currency, and spiritual currency when journeying with Dungeons & Dragons, when experiencing Dungeons & Dragons, not playing Dungeons & Dragons, okay? And if you don't understand any of that, you got to listen to my last video on these currencies, these special currencies that are used to journey with Dungeons & Dragons. So if you haven't watched that previous video, the link is below. Please watch that video, and then you'll be ready for this video. Apologies, I usually struggle to make sure I do freestanding videos, but I don't want to repeat myself, and I don't want me to be saying the same thing in every other video. So I struggle to make sure each video is unique and joyful and worthy of your time. Okay, all right. So you watch my channel, right? Okay, you're no longer playing Dungeons and Dragons. You are seeking to journey with Dungeons and Dragons. You are seeking to experience Dungeons and Dragons. You are doing exactly what I do, and you're doing what Joe Manganiello does. You're no longer playing Dungeons and Dragons. You are using Dungeons and Dragons to transform your own life, and also impact change the society, change the civilization you live in, the culture you live in, the society you live in. Literally, fundamentally change the people around you because you've been transformed by Dungeons and Dragons. That's literally what Joe Manganiello said on D&D Direct at the beginning of this year. That's astounding, right? Like, it's no longer just me saying this stuff, right? Like, people are coming along and just saying, hey, can we pull off the mask? Like, anybody who thinks Dungeons & Dragons is a ridiculous fool. Like, I think Joe Manganiello didn't say those words, but if you read between the lines, that's exactly what he was saying, in my humble opinion, right? So what is the danger to you, right? Okay, so here's the issue, right? You're going on a journey with Dungeons & Dragons, and you got fat stacks, man. You got Benjis, you got you got a fat roll of intellectual Benjis, right? You got a fat roll of emotional Benjis. You got a fat roll of spiritual Benjis. You are rolling deep like a rapper, right? On all 3, right? And you're like, I'm ready to learn new stuff. I'm ready to take things that I've known for 15 years and say that they are intellectually wrong. I'm willing to say the things I knew were right are now wrong, and I am unlearning and relearning and learning for the first time true IRL lessons, right? I'm doing social experimentation. I'm doing abstract IRL experimentation in real time, right? And this ain't the shallow end of the pool that the Dungeon Dudes will help you with. It's just not, right? Like this is you using Dungeons & Dragons as a tool and rejecting it as a game, okay? So if you're doing that, right, you're like, hey, I have an intellectual curiosity. I have an intellectual courage, right? I have emotional resiliency to become incredibly invested in a player character that I've invested 6, 12, 18 months in, and then go through that character's death and journey through an identity that may be more valuable to me than my own identity, and go all the way through that character's death and watch them buried, right? And watch the player characters around the table mourn that player character, right? I'm willing to journey through death. My emotional courage, my emotional capacity is ready, right? This isn't somebody playing D&D 1E, 2E, 3E, 4E, or some horrible copy of those games where there's never going to be any investment, where there's never going to be any meaning in those player characters, never going to be any value in those characters, never a tear shed for the type of meat grinder funnel junk that you will find in these bad D&D copies, right? This is reality. This is a deep sadness. I carry a deep sadness for Beryl, my turtle wizard, who remains in Forgotten Realms now. His body bouncing around, no burial place, no known, ending, no an unfinished narrative that aches in my soul and heart and mind, right? Even now, I don't know where he is, right? Like, yeah. A spiritual, right, depth, right, where you are looking at what does morality mean, right? This isn't Pathfinder removing alignment. Pathfinder right now is saying, hey, no more discussion of good, bad, and evil. We're all evil. We're all worthless. We're all murder hoboing. Let's get rid of, this isn't Pathfinder 2 saying let's get rid of alignment so we can all murder hobo without Gary's echoing call to be a hero, right? This is Dungeons and Dragons saying you have, as a player, you have a spiritual relationship. As a player character, you have a spiritual relationship. And you now need to juggle those two, right? And you need spiritual currency to journey with Dungeons & Dragons. You don't need any spiritual currency to go forward with Pathfinder 2. They're ripping out alignment right now so that you can murder hobo it up and be as evil as you want. And there's never a call for you to be a better person, not in the game or out of the game, right? Gary's influence is being silenced in Pathfinder right now, right? Because they don't want it to. They want those games to have any meaning or any purpose or any value, and they're going to be fully successful in that. I can't believe that they're going to be able to make Pathfinder games worth less than they are now, but they're working hard at it, right? So what is the danger? Here is the danger. What if you are at the table, and this is I am the first person on the internet to ask you this. If you are going on a journey with Dungeons and Dragons, what if you find that the person next to you is not poor? They don't have less currency than you do intellectually, right? Less currency than you do emotionally, less currency than you do spiritually. But what if they're like a Pathfinder player? What if they are intellectually, emotionally, spiritually bankrupt, right? And all they want is the next combat. All they want is the next goblin to cut in half. All they want is somebody to roll on the random monster generator for something to kill. There is no interest in dealing with the cultural, intellectual, current, the intellectual, the emotional, the spiritual questions that Dungeons & Dragons asks with every brand new D&D canon hardback, right? And they're like, get all that noise out of the way, man. You threaten me with change. You threaten me with questions. You threaten me with transformation. What if the person next to you is bankrupt on 1, 2, or 3 of them? What if they are intellectually bankrupt? What if they are emotionally bankrupt? What if they're like a full-on Pathfinder dedicated dungeon master, right? Fully intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually bankrupt. Good with a copy that contains none of the beauty, none of the art, none of the passion that Gary put into Dungeons & Dragons. And that's what Pathfinder is at this point, and is becoming even more powerful of. Just like this thing that is a hollow husk that contains nothing of the beauty, art, love, and passion that Gary put into it. The last thing in Pathfinder was the alignment, and they're ripping it out now to make sure that you will never be challenged. Never, right? Never be asked to do anything of moral good. Never be asked to make a choice between good and evil and live in the middle. They're like, let's all get ready for murder hobo, 100% everything. Let's pull out alignment so that every murder hobo is wonderfully comfortable here. Right? What if you are at the table with someone who is intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually bankrupt? Here's the issue, right? When you get a package from Amazon, let's say you get a book, right? It's gonna take a long journey, right? And there's gonna be moisture in those. There'll be some of the warehouses will be cool and some will be hot, and there'll be moisture. And so they put a desiccant in the package. They put a desiccant in the package to pull all the moisture out, right? And to dry it out, to shrivel it, right? To make sure it remains dry, that every page of the book remains dry. If you get in a game, if you are here and you are trying to move forward on a intellectual, emotional, and spiritual journey with Dungeons & Dragons, and you are at a table with someone who is intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually bankrupt, they are a desiccant to you. They will dry out your intellectual courage. They will dry out your your emotional courage. They will dry out your spiritual courage. They will suck every bit of the love, joy, passion, brilliance, art that Gary put into the game, and they'll make sure that you become a desiccated, shriveled, unintellectual, unemotional, unspiritual being. You are under a danger that you will never experience if you listen to the Dungeon Dudes and you play Dungeons and Dragons the way they tell you to play. Not journey with it, not experience it, but play. Right? Don't be desiccated. Don't allow people who are intellectually, emotionally, spiritually bankrupt to stop you on your journey. You need to be aware of it, and you need to know how to manage it. And there are ways to manage it. I'm not presenting any of those in this video because I have limited resources and time. But the first part of fixing a problem is acknowledging it and understanding the shape of it and understanding the impact of it and understanding the importance of it. So I want to thank you for having the courage to be here, right? Like, you're right. Nobody else in the world talk about Dungeons & Dragons like I do, right? And calling you to a different space, a different thing, right? And on any decent journey, there are dangers, right? And I wanted to be open and honest with you about those dangers. Thank you so much for your patience with this incredibly unique content that is challenging, right? I can't thank you guys enough. I'm really excited about coming up on 1 million views. I can smell it. and I'm very thankful, and I really appreciate you guys letting me dive into the deep end of the pool with this stuff. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking, subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.